The following episode contains or may contain spoilers. So if you're spoiler sensitive, maybe beware.
Yeah, you sensitive people.
Get out.
No, get in. What would it be called? You have, like, brother husbands? Sister
That sounds weird.
Well, because for some reason, sister wives sounds fine.
Yeah,
But brother husbands...
Sister wives sounds fine.
Well, not the concept of it. I mean, I don't care what people do. It's fine, but I'm saying the way it rolls off the tongue, I don't like the way brother husband sounds in my mouth.
Okay, well, this has gotten weird and gross.
Welcome to the Fantom Zone. 3 fans, 1 podcast, and a sea of comics.
Woohoo!
Bam.
I'm Noah.
Kayla.
And I'm Jered.
So resigned.
Why? Y'all seem very tired today.
Oh yeah, I had less than 0 hours of sleep. Can you have like a negative amount of sleep? Because that's how much sleep I had.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. You can be super awake. Like hyper awake.
Yeah,
Both of you had very long couple days or no sleep the night prior to doing this. So this is gonna be fun.
It's marathon like.
I'm gonna be slightly delirious. This is good though.
So today we are talking about mercenaries, bounty hunters, and assassins.
Stop! You promised you wouldn't do that.
He didn't promise, and
I
don't think
made
we
that up in
never.
my head because I had more faith in Noah.
I don't think we believed he wasn't going to do that.
I wanted to so badly.
What? Assassins.
Better. Yep.
Yeah, so we thought it'd be cool to kind of touch on some of the murderous bunch that are throughout comics.
Well,
More
we-
neutral parties.
In
Yeah.
a way, yeah. And we should be clear, too, as I was thinking about this, the assassins thing, we're doing assassins for money,
Yeah.
not just assassins. Cause
Yeah, not like JFK assassins.
Yeah, because actually the weird thing, when I looked it up on like Wikipedia, most assassins that come up are more like politically driven assassins.
Yeah.
And ironically, comic related, the League of Assassins doesn't really fall under what we're talking about.
We got into a fight over whether or not Talia would count.
Yeah. Well, they all could, but it's just like Roz's people. They don't specialize in like, murder for money. It's usually like to topple governments and like clean up a city
Yeah,
or whatever.
Whenever I think of assassins in like comics, I guess I think of them more in like the ninja category, just how they've been portrayed. So like Cheshire and stuff like that, like just like the ninjas,
Cat
sneaky.
ninjas.
Yep.
Yeah,
Who are poisonous.
Yeah, but then
Poisonous cat ninjas or
like-
assassins.
That's a genre of...
yeah.
That's yeah, and I think if you think about it in the real world, it's just people that try to kill political leaders.
Oh yeah.
So, let's stick
Or
with
other
comics.
dignitaries.
Let's stick with comics because that sounds boring.
So we got our assassins, murder for money. We got mercenaries, which is like just generally fighting for
I guess
money.
it's like muscle for hire.
Muscle for hire,
Yeah.
totally.
Sometimes people die, but it's not the point.
And then bounty hunters, which is like, hey, bring that person to me.
Or
person.
kill them,
So I
dead
can
or
kill
alive.
Yeah, oh, that's true.
Bring me their head.
Yeah, they just want some proof that like you found them. And
Yeah.
alive might be better depending on why they need
Well,
them.
there's two. There's like the cowboy bounty hunters that we think about, but then there's also bounty hunters of the dog variety. Who you guys familiar with Dog the Bounty Hunter?
Oh Jesus,
He's fascinating.
I thought you meant like an actual dog.
No,
Me too.
But in those cases, like more like court ordered kind of legal bounty hunters, they're like they get prisoners that escaped or whatever. So it could go many ways. Is what I'm saying.
But in the comic book world, the more exciting and much more enjoyable to learn about is the ones that go get something or somebody.
How is Dog the Bounty Hunter not a comic yet?
I don't want him to be.
No, but it's like it would be
don't
Dog
want
the
him
Bounty
to be.
Hunter, but in the comics he's like a werewolf, so he would literally become like half dog, half man on a motorcycle with a mullet and a
Like Bigby?
It'd be great. Yes,
Jesus
that's a Fables reference.
Yes.
Got our first Fables reference. Need a bell.
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay, but anyway, yes, that's what we're doing.
Yes, that is what we're doing.
Cool. So I think
This is your part.
I didn't know it was my part.
Yeah, I'm introducing
You're
it.
introducing it, and I'm gonna get into the meat of it.
Snip, snip.
Yeah. You're presenting. You're taking the metal thing off, and I'm like, here's the turkey meat. That's what you're saying. Let's do it. Okay. So here's the one I think the thing to consider is that there's a reason these tropes work. Like you see this a lot. And I have a few feelings about it, and we'll talk a little bit about like why you keep seeing this in comics. My like sort of main theory, I guess, is that they're a weird like reprieve from the normal like hero villain dynamic because they're weirdly amoralist.
Again, I kind of like the neutral agent aspect of this type of comic book character.
Yeah,
and they typically have like a very strict code.
Yes.
That they don't waver from. And I think that's a big difference.
Or they don't.
Yes. I prefer, I'm leaning Noah's way, though.
Yeah.
I think I like it better when, it's kind of like, remember when you were talking about Deathstroke in Forever Evil and how his switch kind of didn't make sense for the character?
Yeah.
I like the neutral agent aspect of these characters, but I also like when they have a strong moral code and there's like a clear reason for why they're doing what they're doing.
Or like they don't do a specific thing. It's like, oh, I never kill women or
for
children.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Now that we got to that, I think there's like it's almost like they're like a sub, it's a sub trope of the larger thing. Because I think what you have also is that, so it runs the gamut. That's what's kind of cool about this. I want to go back to the point earlier about like that it's different than heroes and villains. But in this case, you have the like, honor bound, like, here's right, like Lady Shiva is a good example of that. Right? And then you have the 9 to 5, I'm just doing this for money, I don't give a shit about anything sort of thing. Or then you have the psychopath, evil murderer like Bullseye. That's a sort of good example of where they sort of like,
yikes.
They're like sadists, but they found a way to get a paycheck for being a disgusting sadist.
I think that they're super smart for doing that because they're like, oh, I like to torture, murder, blah, blah, blah.
Might as well get paid.
Yeah, I can do it legally.
That's a good point.
Did you just say legally?
No, I meant because if they're connected to like an organization.
No, that's not.
You're saying in a legalistic, like kind of.
Yeah, they're not just running around killing people.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Keep
are.
saying that. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Hey, look, this is not your normal law. This is pirate law. And that's fine.
Hey, they are kind of like pirates.
They are a little piratey. And then I think the other one we see a lot is like the madcap kind of like crazy, silly version because that comes. So Deadpool, I think, is the and even if he for a while was like an exception, there've been so many kind of Deadpool derivatives that it's become his own genre.
I would say, warning, we're not spotlighting Deadpool.
Yeah.
We thought about it.
Most of the characters that we've been mentioning thus far may be important to mention, but we're not. Those aren't the ones we're going to focus on.
Is he really a mercenary now?
Yeah.
The merc with the mouth. Yeah.
No, but I mean, still.
Yeah, in his comics, like the way that they're generally driven in terms of like sort of like when the big arc isn't happening, his 9 to 5 job is to do like.
No, I mean, I know that. I was because I've just read him when he popped up in other comics.
Yeah.
So I haven't really read his comics. So that's what I meant. Like I was just wondering.
Well, and then early on, that's how you would run into Deadpool. Is that like in the X-Force, he was hired. I can't remember what he was hired to do. I think maybe kill Domino, who was.
I love Domino.
Well, it was Copycat at the time. So there was like this person who was like a low grade Mystique was like impersonating Domino, and then that's where we got Deadpool's first appearance. A character I don't even like that much.
You don't like Deadpool?
We'll get into it. We're going to get into
Maybe
it.
we shouldn't.
No, it's going to be quite.
I'm sleep deprived, kind of cranky.
No, it's going to be one of my things. I don't hate Deadpool. I think he's terribly overexposed, but I don't hate him. He's good.
Mute his mic.
Mute his mic. Yeah, well, we just disagree. But yeah, are you really? I didn't know you were a big Deadpool fan.
I mean, I don't have posters of him on my wall, but I like the character. I think he's kind of unique in this type of genre.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's definitely unique.
He's definitely one of the more fun ones.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, silly. I love a good fourth wall break.
Yes. And his movies are good. I think they kind of struck gold with that. At least I was about to say Ryan Gosling, but
let's go Ryan Gosling.
I love both of them, but no.
Ryan Gosling was Deadpool. But one of the things you said I think is true, which is that like ninjas have dominated this class, especially in the assassin end of it. You see that a lot.
Are we even talking about a ninja? We were very mindful with who we were choosing.
Yeah, I mean,
I am.
Yeah.
I think mine's derivative.
Oh,
we'll get into it later, rather than talk. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, it was hard to find one that I really wanted to talk about that was ninja-like, as far as in the assassin category, because we were talking about Talia, and I was like, I don't see her as like a ninja assassin. Or an assassin. She could be, but I mean, most of the time, like when I've seen her, she's had like a black skin tight suit on with like a gun, and it's like, I mean.
Yeah, but you're thinking about ninjas like that's specific. I think they're a subset of this, not
no.
That
I
all
know
of this has to be a ninja or something like that.
I know.
Yeah,
but
you're welcome. I'm helping.
Are you?
I think another cool part about this kind of subcategory of character is that villains are a lot easier to define. They're just the antagonists to the hero in the comic, but I feel like characters like this are. Sometimes they work with the hero. Sometimes they're a neutral party. Sometimes they are the villain. But at least among these types of characters, mine have worked beside heroes before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Yeah, mine has too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it is funny because a lot of times when they pop up in the story, they're going after their target. And like Batman or somebody will see them about to kill somebody, like, oh, you can't do that. And it's like, dude, I'm just doing my job, like just like you're doing.
Are you trying to excuse murder again? First with the whole, it's legal, I swear, and now it's like, hey, dude, I'm just doing my job. I'm kind of worried about you now.
I'm pretty sure there's a law somewhere that says if there's a contract, you have to fulfill it. It's legally binding.
Pixar didn't happen.
Yeah, I don't know what we're talking about and how we got into contract law, which it's not that's not important.
We're talking about mercenaries and bounty hunters.
In terms of like from a writing standpoint, I think that does make these characters pretty fluid though, because their motivations are so material. Mm-hmm. It can switch very quickly. So we did mention, I think at one point in an earlier episode, Deathstroke and how he switches sides immediately. And for most characters, most villains or hero characters, that's not. As a writer, you can't do that.
It's not going to be an instantaneous decision.
Yeah, exactly. Spider-Man doesn't all of a sudden, so you know what? I like the Rhino and I hate banks, so let's rob this bank. You can't do that. But with these characters, because they're so unaffiliated to like general moral sorts of things, they can sort of switch really easily. And I think that's pretty cool.
As long as there's like a common way of writing the character that switch makes sense, I think it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it does make for good storytelling. It's kind of they blur the lines between both. You don't really know where they're going to go. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
You don't know if they're going to, double cross the person that they ended up teaming up with.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because like with heroes, they're generally burdened by moral imperatives. They have to save people. They have to do the right thing. And then villains are generally motivated by more like moral, or what do you call it, like things like vengeance or world domination. They're very power oriented.
Yeah.
Those dynamics usually get explored. In this case, it's ironically more like the rest of us than anyone else.
I got a family to feed back home.
Yeah, their main motivations are vocational and stuff like that. And I do think it's funny. They worry about their reps a lot, which is interesting.
Yes.
And
oh my god!
Which is going to what Noah said about the contract thing. It actually is why. If you have a hired killer in a story, you can't just pay them more to get them, because the idea would be, well, if you got a reputation as somebody who, as soon as I pay you to kill someone or murder or bounty someone, I guess find someone, if someone just pays you more, you'll instantly not do it. You're not a very hireable, marketable person.
Yeah.
Do you mean like another organization or somebody I'll pay you more if you kill this person?
Yes. So in a lot of times in stories, the way that they'll try to resolve the situation is Bullseye's going to kill someone, and then another good guy's like, oh, you're getting paid $5,000? I'll pay you $6,000.
Yeah, it's like if Bullseye goes after Tombstone, and Tombstone is like, I'll pay you $2 million to not kill me.
Yeah. Well, then but the problem is that, but you would, but nobody would hire you.
Yeah.
After that,
because you would have that reputation.
You would be, and that's the code a lot of these guys carry, is that they always, if you pay me to do the job, I'll do the job, and nothing will prevent me.
Yeah, because I know there is some stories where I don't know, any number of bounty hunters or assassins got hired to kill somebody. But then there's this other organization that was like, hey, I actually want you to double cross and blah, blah. And they were working with them the whole time. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Because the story kind of progresses that way and it kind of loses the interest of money, I guess.
Yeah.
But they already had a contract with the higher person to begin with. So.
Yeah, it's not a no-no. It's like you can't use it too much because then you start thinking about the fact it's like, oh, this wouldn't really work. Like, and then, for story structure, I think it's interesting because they also are a good way to not fight the main villain immediately. So in a story, usually the idea is like, you've got to save that. In movies, it's the third act. In comics, it's like the sixth issue or something like that. Like you can't immediately have the confrontation with Doctor Doom or whatever. You have to have a nice little in the middle there, and a badass, I don't know, mercenary or assassin can be just the ticket.
And I think it's funny too, because a lot of times, I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, whenever those type of characters, the mercenaries or assassins or bounty hunters, come into the story kind of unexpectedly, or they make a cameo or whatever, I really like them.
Me
Like
too.
most of them, I like all of them. Like, I mean, it's just kind of, it's such a weird thing. It's like, they're bad people, but a lot of people like them.
Again, I feel like because it adds a little bit of unpredictability. It's kind of like this awe-inspiring, like, ooh, what's going to happen next?
And I hate to beat a dead horse here, but I also feel like it is what most of us would do. Really, I mean,
If we were good at killing, we'd kill for money.
well, it's like if we had the powers.
A really strong assumption to make about
here's the
people.
thing, because our rubric here, our category isn't just hired killers. It's people who do dirty jobs for money. So bounty hunting is a good example, or whatever. And I know murder dominates. There's a lot of knives and guns in this category, very clearly.
Yeah, but I mean, stories about somebody like, oh, I'm going to go pick up this lady because this guy wants me to.
Yeah.
I just don't think that goes for a good story. That's why I was
Completely
focusing on
agree.
the murder.
Completely agree. My point is just that if most of us had this kind of power, it's nice to think that we would save the world a lot and risk our lives, or conquer it, or something like that. But more likely, we'd find a way to make money. Yeah. And I think, yeah.
I mean, it's just like, I don't know why I thought of Jumper, the movie. I mean, if I had the ability to teleport into a bank, I would take money.
So I think going back, like,
I've never stolen before. I'm just
I would probably go down the Jessica Jones route, where I'd be like reluctant to get involved, but I guess use my powers to try to move forward.
I guess it depends on what my powers are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I had really terrible powers, I don't know, that I can make things, I don't know.
No, but here,
I couldn't think of a bad power.
I'm not saying hitman or bounty hunter is the only way to make money in this scenario. I'm just saying I think one of the reasons they are interesting is that it imports more conventional psychology into otherwise a usually like moralistic hero versus villain sort of thing. Which I
got that, but I want to know what power I could use to get money.
Oh my gosh. So I was kind of bashing you for making that general statement, but both of you guys are now kind of alarming.
Maybe your power just to change bank records. That would be if you're just
Fudge
trying to
numbers.
make money. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm the embezzler.
That's a much better name than what I had in my
The
head.
embezzler is a cool name.
What did you have in your?
The Fudger.
Yeah, yours is gross.
terrible.
Yours is gross every way.
Oh, jeez. Okay, we need to move on.
Okay, so done with the vague general awesomeness about why we like the mercenaries, assassins, bounty hunters classes. Now I'm pretending it's a video game, guys. We're going to get into more specific characters that we kind of chose for a variety of reasons. And I think Jered is starting us off.
Yay!
So who's your first character?
I went with Taskmaster.
Nice.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, because I was going to, and then I was like, I don't think I'm going to do him. And you're like, yoink.
Yep. I'm gonna take that.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times one of you picks something and I'm like, I would not have remembered him. And he is great. So Taskmaster, if you're unaware, is an Avengers villain, and he's been around for a while. Even though what I'm going to propose is he's pretty far ahead of his time in some interesting ways. But the basic concept of the character is, he is a mercenary and weirdly enough, he has this weird job description that very few in this category do, which is Taskmaster's main mission, or way he makes money is he sets up schools to train supervillain henchmen.
That's hilarious.
Yes, it's just a really interesting and sort of concept.
That's where they come from.
Yes,
is he accepting enrollment?
Yeah, probably. Well, he's not real, but I assume he has open enrollment in Marvel. He also does some standard like mercenary, bodyguarding work. A kind of like arch henchman kind of thing too. So his main powers is he has. I love the expression photographic reflexes. So Taskmaster, if he sees someone do a physical activity, he can immediately copy that physical activity.
Damn.
And so he's watched tapes on every acrobatic-y Marvel hero, so he can punch like Captain America. He's acrobatic like Daredevil. He's got the martial arts ability of Iron Fist. He doesn't have any superpowers beyond that, so he can fight like Spider-Man, but he's not necessarily he can't be as strong as Spider-Man or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
But he ends up doing some pretty cool stuff, like he can copy other people's voices, or he can dance very well. I don't know if that's particular. Yeah, it's not really helpful in that, but he can dance, and you got to know
he could win some dancing competitions.
So originally, Taskmaster was this SHIELD agent, and it was kind of random. He was nearly killed in this sort of firefight, but nearby, there was some magical MacGuffin, a new kind of secret soldier sort of thing, or soldier serum. That's like
as they do,
always around.
Yeah.
So he injects himself with that, and it gives him these photographic reflexes. But the problem, and this is what I think also makes him a pretty interesting dude, is because he instantly remembers anything he sees, and he has those photographic reflexes, it's affected his memory. So he loses long-term memory.
Oh, no.
So he's this inherently, over a certain period, amnesiac character.
Yeah.
So not totally, but he doesn't really know his origins that well at any given time. So he's this weird dilemma. So he's chosen to live in this very 9-to-5, almost like superficial life of just making money. But it's not just because he's a piece of crap. It's because he doesn't really have the option to have a more meaningful life. Yeah, he's very sad.
That's so sad.
But,
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's got so there's an inherent depth to the character, though a lot of this was added on ad hoc.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool that they added that. There's not a mistake, but there's something that's been lost from Taskmaster 2, which is that he used to be mysterious. Now we've not like Wolverine and a lot of characters and that had Deadpool was like this too, had like kind of a mysterious background. Joker, great example.
Yeah.
They've added to it, so we can all debate whether it was good or not.
Yeah.
His name is Tony Masters, which I guess is great.
There are worse names.
It's not a bad name. There's something about me that's like, you didn't have to make it involved with the name. Especially since the name already is a great name because it has the double effect, like a taskmaster. In it's an antiquated word, but it just means like a harsh boss.
Yeah.
Boss. It's past tense boss. The person that used to boss, that boss is now. And also that he masters all the tasks. He sees a task, he masters it. The other thing I got to say about this character that I really love is just the look is so beautiful. It is such an awesome character design. Yes, in a comic design standpoint, because you have the skull face.
Yes.
With the head, so with the hood, which is kind of a Grim Reaper thing.
Yep.
But then the rest of his design is a parody of comic book characters. He's got the cape, he's got the buccaneer boots, he's got the outlandish sort of thing. And it's a combination of all of the characters. I was going to say,
it's kind of clever.
Yes, exactly. So he's got like Captain America's boots, and like Marvel characters don't usually have capes, but you get the point. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, and the way that the fights usually break down with him is he's got he'll have a swordsman, like a sword, and then Captain America's shield and Hawkeye's bow and arrow and stuff like that.
Damn.
That's what makes him super cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the only thing he's really limited by is his physical condition, right?
Correct.
Like the body. Like he wasn't bitten by the radioactive spider.
Yes.
So
yeah, because he can use all these things. I mean, in a way, Taskmaster usually almost sort of does better in the comics than maybe he should.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he'll fight. He's sort of similar to another character that will be named later, but he ends up fighting whole teams of Avengers. I think the way that they kind of describe that or explain it is that he's using all of these things in tandem.
Yeah.
You know, so he's like fighting with Captain America's physical, like his style, also being as good a fighter as Iron Fist. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the jack of all trades, master of none-esque thing.
Yeah,
where...
Or in this case, jack of all trades and master of all. Like he's like, yeah. Yes. And I think this was kind of implied already, but what's really fun about Taskmaster is that he's got a silly, or what do you call it, he's a very glib attitude. Mm-hmm. He doesn't really care. He's not emotionally engaged most of the time. So again, it's not very comic relief, but he just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know, and it's always kind of fun. It feels very like Dirty Cop or something like that. Yeah.
I still love that there's an explanation in the Marvel Universe about where henchmen come from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and then final thing, I guess, we're not necessarily final, but I should add this too. He has a fun frenemy relationship with Deadpool.
That's cool.
Yeah, they actually, I don't know why it's connected this way. One, Deadpool's the only character you really can't copy because Deadpool's so spontaneous, unpredictable, needed a reason that he can't be Deadpool, or whatever, but it is cool. And they have a colleague kind of, they work together a lot, and he's deeply annoyed by Deadpool.
That's hilarious.
Yes, which most people use.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's really funny that these kinds of characters have their Spider-Man in Deadpool. You know what I mean? Because all the other Marvel characters are like,
stop talking.
You're a good guy, but you're so annoying. And yeah.
I wonder if he'll be in the Deadpool movie. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be cool. A random appearance by Taskmaster.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I mean, I would even bet on it if they do the next Deadpool movie because
but I hope it's not like the X-Force like they did in the last one.
Oh,
the
yeah.
X-Force just got murdered
Killed.
immediately.
Except Domino, my girl.
Yeah. Well, when they just on that note, when they did announce the team of characters, which they did beforehand, I was like, oh, these characters kind of suck, and now I see why. With maybe an exception of Shatterstar is pretty cool in the comics or whatever.
Bedlam's pretty cool too,
but not used that. Like, you know what I mean? It didn't feel like he was. Now I'm like, oh, I see why they thought they could get rid of him. There's not like a host of. There's not a message board dedicated to Bedlam. Like, that was our shot. Now he's gone.
Well, who played him? Terry Crews.
Jerry Crews, fantastic.
No. Was it?
Terry Crews? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is also funny because Terry Crews is big,
Yeah.
like, dude, and then that guy just has the power to like disrupt a magnetic or electrical field and give people
so
diarrhea or something. Here's something I wanted to mention before, which I think is funny while we're on the subject of Deadpool and stuff like that. And the category generally,
diarrhea.
Well, yeah,
No.
yeah. Which brings me to my next point
Don't.
about diarrhea. No, but it's funny to me that like with these characters, like it shows you a certain lack of realism in comics we've all come to appreciate because like they're hitman, they're hitmen, I guess. But it's weird because of how they fight and how they look. Like, who would, if the point of serious,
That's not very covert.
Exactly. If the idea is contract killers are supposed to be discreet, it's like, well, we gotta kill Manucci, the crime family. Who do we hire? I know there's a guy in a big red suit who uses Uzis and swords. Get him. I want this in the paper tomorrow.
Taskmaster has a bright
in this
orange
case,
hooded cape.
Yeah, absolutely. At least with Taskmaster, he's not usually the paid assassin type. He usually does more like, the general supervillain mercenary work that we've all come accustomed to. But yeah, he's super cool, and yeah. So that's Taskmaster.
So time to move on to my girl. My first choice I chose was Silver Sable.
Who?
Come on.
Who that is?
Come on. She's so beautiful. Her character design is what drew me to her in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I want to look like her.
Striking.
I have failed, but I want to. But yeah, no, it's a very striking look. Her first appearance was in Spider-Man comics, The Amazing Spider-Man in 1985.
It's been around for a while.
Yeah, and I've mainly read her in Spider-Man comics, but she's kind of more of the mercenary category. Hunter of war criminals, hunter of Nazis in particular.
Hell yeah.
Sounds like a good person.
Continuing her father's work. That's what he used to do. Carrying on the family business. Sometimes she's leader of the Wild Pack, like in her single run she was. It was like Silver Sable and the Wild Pack. She's also owner of Silver Sable International, so it's like a really big company in her home country, which is Simcaria.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, and so, like, her family is really well known there. She's often sent out on diplomatic missions from that country, which brings her, random fun fact about Silver Sable. She has a pretty good relationship with Dr. Doom, because their countries
that makes sense.
Have good relations.
Because Simcaria, is it, and Latveria, they're basically both Balkan countries, like, made-up Balkan countries.
Yeah.
This is Estonia. That's basically... Because that's how they do it in comics. They're just like... we got to make a fictional one. Let's just take a regular country. And yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, no, she has dinner with Dr. Doom sometimes on diplomatic missions. So I thought that was
sweet.
A fun fact. She's kind of been in and out of comics. She had one like good solo run that was cut in the 90s when lots of comics were cut.
They tried a lot of crazy things.
Yeah. She made it up to 35 issues, which isn't terrible.
That's not bad. That's a couple trades.
But her main thing is that she hunts down war criminals.
So she's like a good one of the few like almost good guys.
Almost good, yeah. Pretty close.
Yeah.
She's kind of obsessed with like maintaining her Ice Queen persona though. So she wants to come across as very stoic. Doesn't always work. She has like a deep-seated rage to her.
There's that reputation they care about.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Good point.
She's one of the few people who've made the fashion decision to fight in white.
Yeah.
It would be so dirty.
Yet we have not come across one that is discreet in their costume choice.
Well, the reason her hair turned silver was because she witnessed her mother being killed.
I mean, I knew that, but I didn't want to bring it up.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's my job, talking about this character and their traumatic backstories. Wait until I get to my second character. Anyway, so after that, she kind of wanted to take revenge, and her father was like, I don't know if I should train you. But then she started showing real potential, but then he became that cool, distant father figure. She became really good at her job, and...
He knew that.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
He knew that was the only way to get her to move on to the next level is just be a very bad parent.
Yep. That seems to be like why is that when parents like induct their children into the family business, they suddenly become really terrible parents.
It's a requirement for the father to be estranged.
Yep.
For them to exceed in their potential.
Oh, she's also been married before. She married the Foreigner, who's also an assassin, so he would be in this category too.
Another band name character, by the way, the Foreigner.
But she found out that he killed her uncle, so they got divorced. And now in current comics, whenever he appears, they kind of have this like frenemy relationship.
Yeah.
I'm surprised she didn't like kill him.
Well, again, Silver Sable is pretty tame in terms of...
Yeah, she's more on the good side than the bad side.
Good leaning. What's my favorite term? Good adjacent.
Good near.
It's a kind of like ends just for the means sort of type of character, maybe a little bit, like where her orientation in the comics is usually like allied with Spider-Man. He's like the main character she ends up interacting with.
Yeah.
But like she carries a gun, a knife, and these weird throwing starry things that she calls chais.
Yep.
That I had to look up, and I don't think they're things outside. I think Silver Sable made them up.
Nice.
Yeah, she has her own thing.
Yeah. She
My
has
girl.
Chais and pumpkin spice latte throwing stars, which is yeah.
She does work with the heroes a lot more than I feel the other ones do, because she's worked beside like Hawkeye as well. So
well, it's like who's she accepting her money from? It's like I don't remember the name of the group, but people that are going to prosecute Nazi war criminals.
Yeah.
So she's like she's doing it for money. And I think I read once that like the only reason she even does it for money is so she'll be taken like seriously, because it's like if you're not doing it for money, they don't trust you. The other mercenaries or something like that. I don't know how that's helpful, but
you can't be in the mercenary club without making money.
They won't tell you the secret handshake or knock.
There goes my reputation. But yeah, I don't know. I thought she was an interesting, not talked about enough. She was recently killed by Rhino and came back, so that was interesting.
Why does Rhino cause so much trouble?
I don't know.
I hate him.
Well, he's a big guy with a horn. You know?
Yeah,
You can't trust that. You
He
can't.
like supposedly drowned her too. It was pretty brutal.
I like the question. Like, why does he cause so much damage? He was just in this China shop the other day, and he couldn't trust it. Broke all that.
It's bull though, right?
It is.
Not
And
Rhino.
apparently in Italy, there's an expression very similar: an elephant in a glass factory.
Oh, did not know
Yeah.
that. So just basically any large.
Around breakables. Yeah.
I was just thinking in my head, I was like, there's no such thing as a glass factory.
Yeah.
But where does glass come
Glass
from?
got to be made somewhere.
And you guys are the ones that didn't get any sleep.
But yeah, with Silver Sable, I like the potential of this character a lot. I feel like if in the hands of a good writer and artist, she could become a really popular mainstream character. So here's hoping.
Yeah, I mean, she was in the recent Spider-Man game, which I thought
really?
was a really pleasant surprise. So.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you're a big Spider-Man fan, she's definitely there for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or that sounds weird. Like she's gonna.
She's there for
You can always turn to Silver Sable.
She's a good shoulder to cry on.
But I mean, she is not. What do you call it? Like, she's no minor character.
Yeah.
I'd say she's definitely a B character, but she's
pretty prominent in the Spider-Man universe at least.
absolutely. Yeah. And again, I think it's cool. You got to have characters running around with knives and guns.
And Chais.
Both.
Yeah, and Chais. Yeah.
I really hate that. Now that you told me that, it's like, why did you call him that? Is it just because it's shorter to
It
say?
doesn't. Well, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think it might be one of those things where it's like a Western person trying to think of like, this sounds Chinesey or something like that. Like, it's true. Like, there's a bunch of like 70s martial arts and Asian culture co-opting.
I mean, I wonder if it is an actual thing, though.
I looked it up. Maybe it is, but it was hard to find. I think, I don't know. I challenge you, listener.
Proof that they're real.
If you find out there are, hit us back. Throw one at us. That's how you can
Throw one at him.
participate.
Don't throw one at us.
No.
I was
Yeah.
speaking in the royal we. I should have said earlier to make this a more interactive episode. Noah has actually hired a contract killer to off me.
Oh.
And so that's
So, I mean, that's more incentive to check back every week to see if Jered's the contract's been filled.
exactly. At some point, if someone burst in the room, but I did booby trap the room, so be careful. Be careful, assassin. If you're listening.
I really wanted to get into this episode.
Yeah.
It's like method acting, but method podcasting.
the whole thing we picked on the basis of you being like, well,
No, that's
that
why
way
I picked
can
the
have-
episode, because I'm like, look, it's a
No,
theme.
I picked the episode and now I wish I hadn't.
You only think that you
Oh, I'm
picked.
so scared of you guys.
It's that twin thing that we used to have going on. It's like, I put it into your head.
It's called The Shining.
No.
The Shining.
All right. Enough of my shameless advertising for these characters that I love and wish got more attention. So Noah's doing something a little different for his first character. It transcends Marvel and DC. So who are we spotlighting?
I mean, I had such a hard time trying to pick. I mean, one of my characters falls within Marvel and DC, but to pick another one, and I guess I wanted to be a little different. Spice it up a bit, because there's the whole indie comics. I mean, we haven't really talked about any of them, and I thought
They
it
are
would be...
independent of our show. Until now.
Yeah, I mean, and just to make it clear, we are going to be talking about indie comics.
Yeah.
It's just, when you have a comic book podcast, and there's so many superheroes that are in Marvel and DC.
You got to touch on the big ones.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and then we'll find time to add them in. But this next one, we're definitely going to be talking about at some
Because you're
point.
obsessed with it.
I mean, everybody should be obsessed with it.
That's why for my birthday you got me the first issue.
That is true, for her birthday. So I'm going to be talking about a character in Saga. And the Will, which, aka Billy, that's his real name, but the Will sounds much cooler and much more menacing. He's a bounty
The
hunter.
Billy is not as good.
The Billy.
The Bill.
Yeah, that's not bad, actually. But yeah, no, for Kayla's birthday, I was like, she really has to read this comic.
Here
I'm
you
going to
go.
get it too.
This is my favorite comic,
funny-
but that's love.
Yeah, but the funny thing was, you didn't even know I bought it for you. You like came back the next week and you're like, here you go, here's your comic. I'm like, I bought that for you.
Yeah, I thought you were just letting me borrow it.
No. But anyway, so yeah, the Will. He is a human in the Saga universe. So Saga focuses around two species to, groups of people. There's the wreath, which is a moon, and they have horns. That's how you distinguish them. Like a ram's horns or a unicorn horn or horns on their head. And then landfall, which is the planet that moon circles around. And the landfall, they have wings. So just kind of think like fairy type wings.
Or avian people.
Yeah.
Bird children.
Yeah, they have different variety of wings. So anyway, the story focuses around Marco and Alana, and they have a relationship and have a hybrid kid, which is completely uncalled for because these two people
uncalled for.
Yeah, well,
they're unheard of.
So you're against it, is what you're saying.
That's uncalled for.
You know what I mean?
It's a taboo. Oh, also it's magic versus technology.
Yes,
Nice.
yes. So the wreath people, magic, landfall, technology. Just to kind of give you a little background. And so they have a kid, or she's pregnant. That's where the story goes from there. So there is this character named Vess, and she's a leader at the Wreath, which is the moon people with horns. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't need to.
Makes sense to me.
She hires this bounty hunter called the Will. And he's a human, so he has no horns or wings or anything like that. So he hires her to go and get this child. She doesn't care about, the parents dying or anything. Just give me the child, which hence what we talked about earlier. Bounty hunters either kidnap people or prove that, they existed or whatever. But the thing that makes this character really cool is he kind of looks like a superhero sometimes because his cape comes up and it creates this Zorro type looking thing. Visually he looks really cool.
It's a great silhouette.
Yes. And the weapon of choice that he has is, I don't think it had a name. It's been so long since I read his introduction, but it's a lance. And the really cool thing about this lance is that it extends. It will shoot outward or, so it has a big reach. And his cape is fireproof and blast proof and stuff like that. But the single most coolest thing about this character.
Sorry, I'm interested.
Is that not right?
No.
I don't want a grammar lesson right now.
Sorry, turning down the English teacher in me.
But the single coolest thing about this character is his companion. And I guess most of these bounty hunters...
Liar.
What?
Liar.
Shut up. That leads me into it. It's called Lying Cat. Lying like you're lying. So this cat has the ability, it's this big, teal looking cat. Looks amazing.
Really scary.
Also bald. It's a shaven.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool.
It's a giant shorn teal cat.
Yeah. Yes. And he has the ability to know when people are lying. And he just says lying.
By annoyingly pointing it out.
Yeah. But which makes it really good for a bounty hunter if he's trying to find somebody or trying to get information. The cat will just be lying. And he's like, oh yeah, you're lying. Because my cat said so. But no, it's so cool. And the cool thing about this character is you don't know too much about him. You kind of get introduced with him in the middle of his story or the middle of his career of being a bounty hunter. And you find out he has this sister called the Brand. And you kind of see their little background story. I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to spoil it. It's really good. But she also has a pet companion called Sweet Boy. And it's this big Deadpool-looking dog. The colors look just like Deadpool.
But he's shaped like a Saint Bernard.
Yes, he's a giant Saint Bernard. And he shoots tranquilizing darts out of his nose.
Oh
just like a real Saint Bernard.
Yeah. It's so cool. This story, this more is me advocating for the story, but I also think
I was going to say, you barely touched on the will.
But the function of the story, because it's this sort of chase story in a lot of ways, or road trip story or something like that. Because they've done something politically awful and these two powers, there's a lot of contracts on them. So it's a great, there's so many bounty hunters in the story.
Yeah. I think so far you get, at least in the story, you get introduced to 3. And so you have the Will, which got hired by the Wreath to go find the kid. Then you have the Brand that's also going after them, but I think to get Marco, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have the Will's ex-girlfriend, which is
the Stalk.
The Stalk, which is a terrifying spider woman.
You know that you're a bounty hunter because you have the in front of your name.
Yeah.
And then a common object it's the flashlight. Flashlight's coming and we're all going to be murdered.
Yeah, and it's really cool how they do their bounty hunter situation in that universe. These cool interactions with his past, his present, his family, his ex-girlfriend, but he's going after a single thing. So you have all these different kind of stories moving in the same direction, and it is just one big chase. It's them trying to hide from everybody that's trying to get them, and it's them trying to get them to not make that confusing. But yeah, I mean, I like the Will a lot.
Well, it feels like with that many bounty hunters, the fact that this is the one that you picked, I mean, it says something. Because they're all cool, they're all deadly, but there is something kind of special about the Will.
And I think, you know, his personality and kind of, he's very driven, and he's very much on the target. And
he's a professional.
Yeah, he is a professional, and there is one part in it that I think is hilarious where he kind of loses the trail and kind of gets lost trying to find his target, and he gets really fat.
Yeah. He lets himself go.
Yeah. He literally lets himself go. And, but yeah, I won't spoil that. But I just think the character development for that, as far as like bounty hunters go, because you know how they kind of come in and out of stories. I think he's a really good example of like kind of sticking in the story.
Like a more consistent.
Yeah, but also the development for him is really good.
Yeah, you know who he feels like to me a lot is he's a very noir detective. He feels like Harrison Ford's character in Blade Runner.
Yes,
a lot. There's a lot.
That's a good example.
Yeah, I don't know if it's inspired or it's just like he feels dark, but not in a macabre. He's like troubled, you know. And I think a lot of what they did with him, which is unique to our group that we picked, is that he's kind of almost given up on life.
Yeah.
Like it's like he's only got this job and he kind of doesn't care about all of his relationships or anything like that are all but gone. And he just has Lion Cat and the fact that he's good at tracking and I guess killing bad people.
Yeah. Or good people.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a bounty hunter, so he doesn't care like if they're good or bad. And I think that's a good thing to kind of distinguish and point out. Even like most of the time, they don't let their moralities get in the way of what they were contracted to do,
or they don't have any.
Yeah, or they don't have any. So like the Will, I mean, you would think he's human and stuff in this alien type situation, and they're like, "Oh, bring me back this child from the parents." And I think there's a conversation of like, "Oh, do you want me to kill the parents?" And she's like, I mean, I don't care. He's like, okay, good. It's like, well,
yeah.
Where's your humanity?
But on the other end, it's like he's one of those characters that doesn't get a lot out of hurting people either. You know, because I think a lot of the characters on this, it's like they were awful, horrible people, and so it's like they found a position that allows them to do this. Where you get with him, it's like he does it because he's good at it, but not necessarily because he wants to like hurt people or something like that.
Yeah, he's a really good character, and I kind of wanted to go away from Marvel and DC a little bit, just to kind of give a little spice it up.
I mean, if you're not reading Saga right now, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, and we are going to definitely be talking about Saga at some point in the future. But yeah, that is.
That pick is important too, because it's like if we're doing stuff about bounty hunters, it is one of the most bounty huntery heavy stories.
Yeah, I mean, because when you get introduced to him, he's given the contract to go get this child.
Yeah.
And
that's not even born
story.
yet. Yeah, and that is it. That's all you need to know from him. And then his story obviously builds from there when you meet the stock and the brand and all these other things, but still has that single focus. It's really cool. And I know Jered's really excited about this one.
We're starting with the big leagues now.
Yeah, I think these are more of like our favorite picks within those categories.
More just like the more popular characters that people will know.
The ones, how do you not pick them?
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
No, we did leave a bunch of good ones out because we had to.
We did talk about it earlier where when we were discussing or everybody was trying to pick which ones they were going to do. The more you go down the list, the more it's like, well, that one's kind of similar to this one.
It's a
and
derivative
it's like, so
thing.
why don't I just do the one that's on top instead of doing this one way down here? Because it's like, well, then there's not much to say because they've been in like 3 comics.
And characters are all so derivative anyway. It's like, we should just do Superman and call it a day.
But who did you pick?
Okay, so I picked... Okay, the one I picked, you're going to be like, well, who's going to follow that? And then you're going to get the other 2 picks, and you're like, okay, they're great too. Okay, so I picked Deathstroke.
The king.
In certain ways, he's like the purest form of the category. Like in that he is the premier assassin, mercenary, bounty hunter. He does some bounty hunting, I'm sure, on the side of, I would say both universes, but specifically at DC. You think about like, the mercenary. Deathstroke is almost the next name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to give you a sense of the character really quick, he was in the army. He had been doing contract work. He was understood as like one of the greatest soldiers, and warriors of, on the globe.
As
whatever.
comic book characters
Exactly.
usually are.
But in this case, this is before he even gets,
Right.
what you'll find out are his powers or whatever. He undergoes a secret army operation to give him, they always do this, to give him
Army, man.
superpowers. And what's this, the stroke
Oh
of
my
genius,
God. Oh my God.
maybe the death stroke of genius. Okay,
Oh my
sorry. Was that part of this also increased his brain. So physical and mental ability. So he's got what you'd kind of think: strength, speed, agility, reflexes, all that
The
stamina.
normal, like, serum-induced ability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's, I would say, a little higher level. If you want to think of his physicality and you don't know him, he's sort of in like the Wolverine level, where he's like sort of physically enhanced, but not necessarily like ripping, or like car doors off, or maybe a little bit, but not lifting cars. He's not in that area, but he's sort of down there or something like that. But also, his mental capabilities were increased. Now, they were increased in a way that sort of people, it was based on bad neuroscience at the time. I know when they wrote it. So this is that you always hear, he uses 90% of our brain.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was sort of a misunderstanding that the way our brains work, we don't use 90% at the same time.
Yes.
But
We use 100% of our brain.
Exactly. But so it's almost like saying, like it's using humor theory, like his blood and his bile was 3 times more power. Anyway, okay.
So that is the only science lesson you will ever get from us.
Exactly. So they've updated it maybe a little bit. Sometimes like his mental faculties are by a factor of 9. They kind of do that. So anyway, he's a master strategist, awesome warrior, and then he's got all these physical upgrades and stuff like that, which is how he can fight entire teams of DC heroes at the same time. He's so cool. Okay, anyway, giving you a sense of his origin too, a little bit more going into it. After he gets the upgrade, and he starts doing pure mercenary work because he doesn't trust the military anymore. He's on the sort of stage of great assassins and things like that. And he takes a contract, and the people, some political contract, the people intercept it in a sense and kidnap his kid. Who will later
That
on
makes sense.
Yes. So in other words, they do a counter contract kind of situation. Kidnap one of his kids, and rather than acquiesce to the demands or care about his family, he hopes that his supervillain powers, or I guess he's not a supervillain yet, but his enhanced powers are going to save the day. He wipes out the competition, but they do slit his son's throat. Yeah. They do slit his son's throat. He doesn't die, but he can't speak anymore. He's going to be Jericho later. Anyway, and so his wife, who is enraged at him, shoots him in the face. But his healing factor, I forgot to say, he has a healing factor. Again, it's not really
convenient.
It's not. Well, he had it, but I just left it out. But he not Deadpool level, but usually saves him from like lethal wounds and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it blew. It did blow. But anyway, he hated it. But he lived, but he did lose his eye, which is a signature look for him.
The eye patch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's got, and I think it's such a cool move that like when because he only has one eye, his mask only has one eye hole.
Yeah, like it's solid.
Yeah,
almost.
exactly.
That is really cool.
And he's got such a great look, and he also reminds me of Wolverine in this respect, which is that he's as known for the mask as he is for not having the mask. Mm-hmm. So Deathstroke's look is so, if you're a fan, you'll know like that half orange, half dark blue. He's very flamboyantly colored for an assassin.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered this.
Exactly.
Orange
Yeah.
seems to be the color.
It's like caution.
Yeah.
Hazardous.
Yeah. or avarice in the Green Lantern mythos, and they do money. That's a connection. Okay, anyway.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy. Blowing.
Why don't I ever make these connections, damn it?
Because you're not partially insane like me. But anyway, so
You're only using 10% of your brain, though.
Yeah.
If I had that serum to use 100% of
Your
my
humors are deeply out of whack. That's the problem. But anyway, so yeah, your yellow bile is not in touch with it.
Oh my God,
I don't
move
know.
on.
Okay, sorry. But he's also the gray hair and the eye patch equally well known. So that's kind of Deathstroke conceptually in a a nut hole, a nutshell. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, so here's what's cool about Deathstroke in a couple ways in terms of his relationship to other characters and design and stuff like that. So one of the things that's funny is that
Nightwing?
no, not even a little bit. Completely
You were
uninvolved.
waiting. I saw you kind of
We'll get to Nightwing because he does have a connection. But no, what I think is interesting is that people often get really mad at Deadpool for ripping Deathstroke off. And this is not an anti-Deadpool thing. There is clearly, so what's interesting about that is that the creators of Deadpool, Rob Liefeld specifically, probably was not the most creative guy in the world and probably was ripping him off a bit. But he's been created in such an interesting way post that. They've added so much Deadpool, completely independent character.
Yeah.
But it's also illegitimate to make the point that Deadpool is a ripoff of Deathstroke because Deathstroke himself is in many ways the ripoff, almost intentionally, of Captain America.
Yeah.
So Deathstroke is like and his costume itself is kind of homage to Captain America because he's got the Buccaneer boots and
Yeah,
the
I mean,
same
if you
gloves.
take off his mask
Yeah.
and like his guns and everything,
Yeah.
it looks like Captain America's suit.
And he used to be blonde in the same way before he went gray. A lot of ways that's the story, which is what would Captain America have been like if in a slightly more
Went
realistic,
Yeah, 'cause
cynical
he got
ways. Yeah, went wrong.
the serum just like he did.
Exactly.
And I mean, the whole Deadpool thing, like, I mean, that's fine if people want to say it. I mean, their names are similar to
Yeah.
Slade Wilson, Wade Wilson. I mean,
Yeah.
they're very similar, but
Deathpool, Deathstroke.
yeah, I mean, but they're so different.
Well, they've become different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's fine because like sometimes characters they begin as a ripoff and then they have their own life. And
Good
that's
for
pretty cool.
them.
I'm happy for him. I really am. So another thing to mention about Deathstroke is that he's got some weird weapons, weird choice of weapons.
Why?
Well, no, that's crazy. That's more Deadpool. He's got the broadsword, which is just a weird sort of choice. It's Promethium, which is very strong. So you know,
Why?
if you try to break it,
Why?
you can't.
Did you
Why
know
do you
it's
know
made
that?
of strong metal?
Because Marvel's really known for their metals with adamantium and vibranium, but DC is like, we got our Promethium.
Nymph metal is
Nth metal. That's true, but it's like almost
best.
magic. Nth metal.
anyway.
Man, funny you mentioned that. Deathstroke had an nth metal suit for a while. And that's kind of the thing. It's like they give him like some extra added stuff to kind of be able to compete. He's got to get punched by Superman. He had the Icon suit for a while, which was like this sort of quasi magical suit kind of thing.
I would just think of all the guns that he has and carries
He's got
with
a
him.
lot of
I
guns.
mean, the thing
too.
that I like about Deathstroke is that he's a antagonist to a lot of different people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, as more notably so, Batman, and then like the Teen Titans or Titans.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool because you wouldn't expect him to really be involved with the Teen Titans,
But he's
but when he is, it makes sense.
Well, again, that was my first exposure.
Yeah.
Was the show Teen Titans? So
it's fair to say that Teen Titans are the sort of conventional superheroes that he's the most connected to.
Yeah.
And a lot of his story has been fleshed out in that way. So his daughter, Ravager,
Yes.
was on the Teen Titans. So was Jericho.
Yep.
Jericho, if you don't know, is this kind of cool character that has the ability to like, possess other people with his spirit. He can't speak, but anyway, those are his kids. And and a lot of his motivations have been hung up with the Teen Titans. He was really, because his kids died, or one of his kids died, and then the other one had his throat cut or whatever. He had another kid too, Grant, who ended up getting killed because he tried to be like Deathstroke.
Why? Just stop having kids.
Well, he had them already.
Jesus.
So I'll get to that in a second. He's also, Deathstroke is an awful person in a certain way. I mean, not just because he's a hired mercenary killer, but you'll see in a second. But anyway, so he's been motivated against Teen Titans because he hates that they would, like, he thinks they're going to get themselves killed.
So he's gonna do it for them.
Show you that this is not a thing you should be involved in.
So kind of like make an example of anyone that he can kill on the team, going like,
Yeah.
see, it's dangerous.
It
You should stop.
It reminds
before I
me
kill you all.
Yeah, it reminds me of Zoom in a certain way, where it's like he's gonna attack Flash to make him better, like to show him to become a great hero. In the similar,
and they go too far.
Yeah.
Just leave them alone,
Yes.
damn it.
But like the other thing that's cool about Deathstroke is he's just so awesome. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Is that how you want to end?
No. This is what what I was gonna say is that like he's been protagonist victimized in a way. He's one of few characters, I think, that haven't been made worse for the wear on that basis. So he's, he started off as this mysterious villain and sort of mercenary, but he's had his own title for a lot of DC's sort of history.
The Terminator.
Exactly. Because he's right. Oh, that's it. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Because originally he was just going to be called the Terminator.
Yeah, and I'm glad he's not.
And then the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie came out.
Good.
And yeah, also good.
Backspace,
that's a great movie.
Backspace.
So the Terminator. Well, no, but what they did was that's where they came up with Deathstroke. So for a long time, he was called Deathstroke the Terminator. I still like that. That's from the old.
I mean,
series.
it's cool as like this is his like full title, but I think Deathstroke is so unique.
Oh yeah.
And
all his names are terrifying.
Yeah.
So Deathstroke,
Slade Wilson.
Slade. You're making your kids evil at that point. Naming him
name my kid Slade.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's girl or boy.
Yeah.
Slade.
But yeah, so he's got scary names. But yeah, so they've developed the story, and it's been really interesting just to read his issues, and there's enough good there to kind of work. And I think one of the things that they've gone for, the latest, this will be one of my recommendations anyway, but the current rebirth, the current rebirth storyline with Deathstroke is a really awesome character study. And here's my selling it. It's the idea, what if a character who was a mercenary, tried to have a real life, and you kind of get the sense, his life is awful and hollow, and he can't keep anything together. And he kind of, if you're this kind of character, you're going to end up destroying everything you touch.
Yeah, I think it's funny when they do comics like that, when the character's like, they hung up the cape and now they're going to be normal. It's like, no.
You can't.
You'll never
no going
be normal.
back.
One, because you've never been normal.
Yeah.
So how are you going to know how to pay bills?
Yeah.
Because you haven't been.
And the series isn't about him like retiring. It's just about him also along the way, while he's this worst or most, notorious mercenary in the world, also having family relationships. And trying to, you should, it's really good series.
You had mentioned, too, though, that Slade isn't exactly a good guy. It's not like, I'm only doing this for the money. I really love my family. It's like, no, he...
But exactly, and he kind of thinks that because he's this warrior, he understands the world better than everybody else. So in a sense, he cares about his family to the degree he wants what's best for them. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the lessons he tries to teach them is like, look, the world sucks, and the fact that you have hope is a bad
Again, that
thing.
Cold, distant father
Exactly.
figure.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, he's started the trend of all these characters having death or dead in their name for some reason. There's so many.
That's such a good segue.
I know. No. So here's how I'm going to lead into you. Here we go. So you got Deathstroke, Death's Head, was a really cool character. Deadline. What did I miss any? Oh, and
Deadshot! Yes, timed perfectly. Yeah, I'm going to...
Oh, yeah, that's the character you're doing.
Yes! Oh my gosh!
Oh, that's weird. I thought you were doing Lady Shiva. Okay, no,
I
okay.
considered it. Having two women would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But because Deadshot is so tied into the Bat universe, he's like gone in and out of all of like the animated video game comic stuff that I've read recently. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do Deadshot.
He is very prominent right now.
And again, he's been around since the 50s. A very sad origin story. So, like most villainy-esque characters, he had a troubled home life.
Of course.
And he had an older brother that he idolized. His mother hired his brother to kill their father. And
what?
Floyd was like, I don't want that on his hands. Like, I don't want him to be destroyed by having to kill his father. So he climbs outside onto like a tree branch and like tries to shoot the gun out of his brother's hand, but the branch breaks. So he accidentally shoots his brother in the head. So he kills the brother that he loves and saves the father that he hates. And since that moment, it was kind of just a turning point in this poor guy's life.
It was fate.
I've never looked at his origin before,
Really?
and that makes me respect him so much. Well, not respect him, but like see him more as a character.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Since that, never been the same. And he kind of, at least before the New 52, he kind of had a death wish since that moment. He just wanted to die in a spectacular way, which is, why he became the second most lethal assassin in the DC universe.
Who's the
First going to Deathstroke, but he's the best shot. Okay,
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, I mean, Deadshot has that iconic like wrist guns.
I think it's really cool too that he has like the wrist guns.
Me too. Yeah. I love that look.
He can punch and shoot at the same time.
Completely dead.
Yeah, you'll hurt from my punch and then also be dead because of my shot.
And he usually has like a bunch of other guns too.
Yep.
Yes.
He's got a bunch of other guns that he can like fall back to.
Yeah, the wrist guns are just the iconic ones.
Yeah.
He can shoot basically anything. Again, best shot in the DC
There's
universe.
been a couple times where he's like shot Barry Allen in the leg, the Flash
really?
in the leg, and I'm just like, damn you. You are the best shot.
You got the Flash, man. I mean, that's my favorite character, but respect.
Yeah.
Wait, while the Flash was running.
Yes.
Oh, he wasn't just like, he didn't just walk up and like, bam!
Okay.
I shot the Flash! Well, he was asleep, so I guess.
Well, much like Slade, kind of a troubled father figure as well. His son was killed by a pedophile, so that's really awful.
Why have I never looked into him before?
Well, it
This
sounds
is
like
all
we
new
were
to
all
me.
better off not knowing some of this stuff.
His story
God.
is so sad.
Yeah.
It's awful.
And now it's kind of different. This was all kind of like pre-New 52. And the New 52, it's kind of more common now. Like, leader of the Suicide Squad is typically what he's known for now.
I actually kind of like it.
Me
Like,
too.
In the animated movies, I think the most recent one, like Hell to Pay or Hell to Raise or whatever it was called, that one was pretty good. And I liked him.
Yeah.
I liked him a lot. I like what they're doing with that character.
I don't think
looks
that
great
he
in
can
it, too.
hold a solo run very long. Like, maybe a limited release, like 6 issues, I would read.
That is a good point. I think he
Works better in an
served.
ensemble cast or popping up in like Batman comics or
Yeah.
something like that. But I do really love the character.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah,
real
yeah.
quick? One of the reasons I think is that Floyd has this weird condition, because he's not just, you sort of touched on it, he has what they call ataraxia, which is the inclination not to emotionally respond to situations. So it's not just that he's willing to hurt people, is that he basically doesn't experience fear or he doesn't care about the situations or something, which is really interesting in an ensemble cast. Which, as I mentioned it, hard to make a protagonist that can't be afraid of things.
Yeah.
And it kind
You know
of
what I mean?
disconnects the maybe like decision to not do something
Yeah.
or to not go kill this person.
Yeah, because unlike the other thing, unlike Deathstroke or Lady Shiva or something like that, I don't think Floyd really has. You can speak to this more, but I don't really think he has this strong code either. Maybe outside of like, don't miss.
Yeah, not particularly. If you want to sum up like current Floyd Lawton Deadshot in comics, it's like protective of his daughter Zoe, very very prideful man.
Reputation.
Yeah, exactly.
Mustachioed.
Yeah.
He does it in a weird, this is kind of like a little side note, in a weird way how they've been doing him, like kind of in the comics and in the animated stuff. He looks a lot like Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Like
Fun
he has
fact.
like the little mustache and stuff, and he has all the gadgets and I'm
It
just
looks a
saying.
lot like Doctor Strange. By the way, too. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's
There's
also
even-
derivative.
There's even
Take
comments
it
in the
back.
comment that Iron Man
Yeah, no, it is true.
high fives or Doctor Strange like facial hair buddies.
Yeah, it's weird. They do look alike.
Do you know, random, when I really started paying attention to Deadshot was his mission in Arkham City. Again, I feel like I mentioned this game a
Or
lot.
the video game.
Yes, I freaking love that game. But it's so, I just love the way that the mission was done. It was in several parts, but Batman basically stumbles across the body and he's like, how the hell did this person die? He has to like follow the bullet trajectory throughout the city and he's like, what the hell?
It's such a cool moment because the other thing is that if you know once it's a bullet and you're figuring out the trajectory, you know what's on the other end of that bullet.
Yep. So you're just following it. And then I think like the climax is Deadshot's trying to shoot some person and Batman makes him miss and he just completely loses it. And it's like, you made me miss!
Yeah, I think, doesn't he say something like, "Oh, I've only missed like so many amount of times" or something like that?
Yeah.
And it's like you've made me like.
I think it's like
miss.
less than 5 and
Yeah.
Batman was every single time.
Yeah,
You messed up my percentages. Pointing at son of a bitch.
I mean, I think we figured out like the main driving force between all of these characters is just their reputation.
Yeah, like
they
the
have to-
reputation,
Rep
the
is
pride
good.
that they have.
Yeah,
But Yep. I just think that he's an interesting character. I like him in any iteration, which I think is important to me. I can follow him across media, and I find him interesting.
And he's pretty consistent. I will say, though, he's been consistent through all of the media except for the TV shows.
Yeah.
Like when they had him in Arrow or whatever else. He was cool when he was first introduced because it's like, oh, that's Deadshot. He's acting just like him. But now he's like this weird like protagonist and like he'll help them every now and then. It's like, okay.
I don't really...
Like that's...
I mean, Deadshot
where's the money?
I've unsubscribed from the Arrowverse for a long time ago.
I mean, I haven't. And that's
unfortunate.
I'm stuck in the ride. I want to get off, but I'm going to see it through.
I jumped off.
So you've left and you find yourself trapped in a hellish nightmarescape that can't be avoided.
Oh, God, this is going off topic. I don't care. So only because 75% of like any given episode is bad, like from a comic book reader's perspective. But then there's that extra little tiny percentage that is good.
Sure.
And it's like...
And it's amazing that you got to see it on TV.
Exactly. So, I mean, you get to see Martian Manhunter on TV fighting with Supergirl, fighting Kryptonians. I'm like, what?
Well, I mean,
I would have never thought this would happen. But then they make some weird, stupid joke, or like it goes back to her like fawning over Jimmy Olsen. I'm like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah. I think the reason people don't like Arrowverse when they don't like it is because it's really close to comics, but it's like the uncanny valley where it's like, so people mention the soap opera aspect of Arrowverse and it's like, oh, it's bad, but comics are a little that way too. So I think it almost exposes the things that we're ashamed of in comic books a lot of times.
I don't know.
Maybe, but it's a little chewy.
I think the CW caves too much to what fans want as opposed to staying true to the comics.
Or what they think they want.
Yeah, exactly. But I can totally segue this back because I think that Deadshot was one of the best parts of the Suicide Squad movie, which was a train wreck.
Yes.
But I think there was like 3 characters I feel like were really strong, and Amanda Waller, Deadshot, and Harley Quinn were the ones
I did mention, I was like, oh, you didn't like Killer Croc? And you're like, huh?
Oh, yeah, he was in that movie.
I mean, I think those characters that you mentioned were like the only ones they actually put any time into.
Yeah.
And I had such high hopes for Katana.
Yeah.
And
she shouldn't have been in it.
I know, yeah.
No, she shouldn't have. Yeah. But when I found out she was in it, I was like, oh, cool. Look, of course I want some Katana. And then she was awful.
Yeah.
She didn't do anything.
Yeah. But Deadshot is amazing in that movie. or at least what they did with him and his appearance. And the thing that killed me about the first animated movie, which is really strong, that Arkham...
Assault on
Arkham with Batman, is that they changed his look and made him look way dumber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in a way where it's like, oh, you don't appreciate one of the coolest things about this character. His look is awesome.
Yeah.
But the white full face hood... Or I don't know what to call it, like ski mask almost. But
with like the scope eye.
With the scope eye I think color scheme's awesome. I think he's great.
All right, so enough of my rambling part 2. So to finish us off, it's a character that hopefully most people know as well.
Yeah, you better. I mean, or at least heard about him. So I'm going to be talking about the main man. Lobo?
Do you want us?
Yeah, Lobo. I mean, you can't have a bounty hunter mercenary assassin episode without talking about the wild man on a wild space hog going throughout the cosmos, smoking cigars, and murdering people.
How he's doing that in space, I do not know.
Because his bike creates a safe atmosphere where you can breathe.
Now I do know.
Yeah. I feel like you should have introduced him like Daenerys Targaryen with all of his titles.
I can. Yeah, I mean, his titles are a little ridiculous. Like, they go anywhere from Master Frag, because he has frag grenades, to Lord of Death. And I'm just saying, if you know anything about Lobo, I mean, he's eccentric, he's gritty, he's kind of funny most of the time, depending on what interpretation you have. But it's like, oh, Lord of Death doesn't really sound like
he kind of looks like an undead biker.
It's true. But it's also like, while Deathstroke might be the most feared man on the planet Earth, Lobo's the most feared man in the universe?
To
maybe the galaxy?
The reason why, he has super strength, speed, stamina. Those kind of vary depending on the writer, but usually, I mean, I want to say Etrigan level strength. I think that's a good comparison. Like, he's not like Superman level strength. He has been. I don't think he should be.
He kicked Superman in the balls.
So, like, nerf that.
Yes. And then he's immortal. So he can come back from anything.
From a single drop of blood.
Yes.
That's
and I'll get into that.
Okay.
And then he has genius level intellect, which...
If you say so.
Exactly. And but the reason why he does, and the instances that it shows it, so there was a run where you find out where he came from. So this crazy, murderous, zombie-looking bike rider came from a utopian planet called Zarnia, which is really hard to say. I keep wanting to say Narnia, like he got Turkish delights to come into our planet.
The witch!
But no, he created a plague and released it on his planet, killed everybody.
What an asshole.
In a week.
You shouldn't have done that.
It was a utopia. It was just like Krypton, and he just wanted to murder all
He
of
wasn't
them.
into it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yikes.
guess so.
I mean, there's something terrifying about a psychopath with superhuman intellect.
Yeah, I mean, and the weird thing about it too is like he's so different from a lot of like his race. Like whenever they talked about, there was a comic of the last Zanarian. How do you fucking
Zarnian.
Zarnian.
That's
Jesus
how I say it.
Christ.
He's struggling with it because if you don't, it's CZ
Yeah,
is how it begins, the word. So yeah, it's weird.
it's fucking English, or I guess alien language at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
It's probably Zarnian.
Yeah. But yeah, just that he's a bounty hunter. He uses shotguns sometimes. Most of the time his fists. He has a chain with a hook that he...
The meat hook.
Yeah, the meat hook. I mean, visually, I think he's super cool.
Yeah.
So he's all pale white. He kind of has like black markings around his eyes. His eyes are just red. Just bright red. And he has dreads, jeans, a vest.
Yeah.
I feel like he's just like he's super gritty, whereas a lot of these heroes are more refined, are mercenaries that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's not professional in appearance.
Yeah.
I think another weird thing about Lobo is he used to have cloning abilities. So
Just what he needed.
Yeah.
More.
And not only, so it's not like a holographic clone that like, you hit it and just like disappears. No, it's all his intellect, all his abilities. It's literally a clone of him. And it can sprout from a drop of blood. Just one. So imagine how many sprouts of blood he could just throw around and then just make tons of clones of himself, which does happen because there's a comic where there's hundreds of clones of him. And the last one standing is the current Lobo.
So, yikes.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really have that power anymore. There was a story where Clarion, the witch boy, like de-aged him, and he was on a mission.
Made him a kid.
Yeah, made him a kid. Sorry, I should have de-aged. Made him a kid. That's what Clarion usually likes to do also. But he made him a kid, and he was on Apocalypse, and that happened. Like he had a bunch of clones happened on Apocalypse, and he killed a bunch of them, and young Lobo was the last one standing.
But yeah, I mean, what's interesting about him in terms of his origin is that he was made as DC's like attempt to kind of make fun of what had dominated Marvel, which is in the 90s, these characters that were maybe not the best conceptually, but especially sort of like tough, gritty. I don't care about anything. You had, I mean, Wolverine was really popular at the time. But also Cable comes out around the same time. The Punisher is really popular. Ghost Rider. So there's a sort of dark and I think in certain ways cheap streak that went on in the 90s of character creation. And so DC kind of wanted to make fun of it. Unfortunately, they forgot that those elements were very popular.
Yeah.
And so
people like the
Lobo becomes
character.
insanely popular.
And it's weird too. Like if you look at what he first looks like, it's not that intimidating. I mean,
It's
has
clownish
like
in a
the
way, yeah.
Orange again and purple.
Oh, you mean originally?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Originally. And he has those colors and it's like a weird, like a meso color scheme going on. And then he has his hair. It's just so weird. It's so detached from what he looks like now.
Yeah.
Just like a space clown.
Yeah, the character accretes into what we think of him around like early 90s, I think, somewhere like that. So he's a big, pale, biker looking guy, which now I'm intimidated.
Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, now he's super intimidating. And I don't. Did you see, by the way, did you see that on the Krypton show that he's on it?
No. Yeah, it's
really weird, guys.
maybe a bit hard to translate. He's one of my favorite parts of Young Justice. The second season.
He's really cool.
He is, so he also, which is really cool, he's I think if DC has a Deadpool, Lobo, in terms of his character, might it be someone. Now, he doesn't break the fourth wall or anything like that, but he doesn't take anything seriously.
Yes.
So it's very cool. Like, I mean, he, again, my favorite thing, he kicked Superman in the balls.
Yep.
It's very important. But he's just like, they're all trying to save the world and he just doesn't give a shit.
I mean, he'd rather just leave and go somewhere else. But I mean, and I think it's because of his healing factor, and it's kind of like he doesn't feel pain.
Yeah.
A lot of times, because a lot of stuff is happening.
Too badass to care.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what it is. Like, he knows, he's like, well, I'm not going to die. Why do I care? Like, I mean, which I think is really interesting for this type of character. Like, he's super powerful, will never die. I mean, a drop of blood he'll just regenerate from that over time. So, I mean, but he's just so outrageous.
Yep. Outrageous is a good word for it. Another weird trivia fact about him is that a lot of times characters are based on real life people. Lobo, it's the first time a real person spawned as a copy of Lobo, and that was Dog the Bounty Hunter. That's Dog the Bounty Hunter. He's not a real person. He was a parody of Lobo, and that's why he is the way he is.
The second time you brought up Dog the Bounty Hunter, and I've never heard you mention Dog the Bounty Hunter aside from
he
today.
Just hadn't had the opportunity.
Yeah. When I think Deadpool, I think, yeah.
No, don't compare him to Dog the Bounty Hunter. That's upsetting.
I gotta say, I love imagining the faces of the DC executives that are like, haha, we're gonna make fun of Marvel characters. We're gonna make this really stupid, obnoxious, outrageous, gritty, dark character, and then people love them, and they're going just that resigned sigh of like, okay.
He's in our stable now.
Why do all our fans love everything we do?
No, I think what it was they were like, oh man, this is gonna be great. They're gonna get it, and they're gonna realize it's a pair. Like, what are the numbers on it?
They took it at surface value. It was
yeah. But I think that's good. I think in a weird way, their intentions behind it goes exactly with the character.
Because he's maintained a sense of humor the entire time.
He's still kind of mocking.
Exactly. So even if people didn't get that it was in a parody, they still get the sense of humor that's inherent to the character. And there's a great issue. I really wish I could remember this. Help us out, fans or whatever, or people listening. Fans do it. Anyway,
accidentally stumbled upon this, and you're like, "What the fuck?"
It's where the Justice League is fighting Despero, or Despero, however you pronounce it, or whatever. And it's sort of Martian Manhunter versus Despero, and then Lobo also gets into the mix. Yeah. So he's just like kind of beating the crap out of both of them. And you can tell that the supervillain and the superheroes are like, yeah, we're trying to fight each other.
Can you leave?
Yeah. I mean, you're really ruining this.
I think that's what I like the most about the character. I mean, when he does pop up in situations like that, especially in the cosmos, like he just pops up and he's like, well, I'm going to fuck both of you up.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny.
I don't know what it's called. I know we've watched it before, that new Justice League cartoon.
Oh, like the one that's like kind of meant for kids.
It's a little bit
actually really good.
It's a SpongeBob thing. It's so well written. And what's it called? Does anybody know? I'm sure people listening to this will know.
Is it like Justice League Action or something like that?
Or Adventure or something like that. Well, either way, there's a great episode where Lobo steals something that the Red Lanterns are looking for, and he cleverly pits the Justice League against the Red Lanterns.
Yeah, but then they end up going against him.
Yeah, totally, at the end. So, but he Bugs Bunnies the shit out of both of these.
Well, and it's funny you should say that, because in Brightest Day, Lobo has a red ring.
Yeah.
So he becomes a Red Lantern. So I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that is Lobo.
He sums up what I think a lot. All these characters that we've been talking about, good, bad, evil, and different, fun. They are usually a fun comic book.
When you see them, you're like, yes.
Yeah.
Comic book recommendation time. I'll start it off. The Last Zanarian for Lobo by Keith Griffins and Alan Grant, I believe. Super easy to find. It's at any comic shop, really. It's really good. Artwork is insane. But I like it. And then the Will is super easy because he's only in one comic, which is Saga.
Go read Saga.
Yeah. Go read it. We will be talking about it. It is one of the greatest comic book stories to date. It's by Brian K. Vaughan, which if you know who he is, he did Why the Last Man. And then the artist is Fiona Staples, which she is phenomenal as well. Kayla.
Yes. For Silver Sable, just, I guess, read her solo run in the 90s. It was only 35 issues, but it's Silver Sable and the Wild Pack. For Deadshot, this is a little different. I was like, so which Suicide Squad comic am I going to be recommending? But I'm going to go with a Secret Six comic. In the 2000s, written by Gail Simone. I really love that writer. And I think that's when I first started caring about him in comics. So
It's my favorite DC comic book.
Secret Six.
Yeah, her run on Secret Six is
I
amazing.
love her. So
it is insanely good. It will make you care about characters you've never read
Heard
before. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ragdoll. Okay.
Yeah. All right, Jered.
So for Deathstroke, check out, there's so many ways you could go, but the Deathstroke the Terminator Volume 1, Assassins. This is by Marv Wolfman. This was his, I believe, series in the 90s. They did like 5 volumes of it. You're going to love it. You got to check it out. Taskmaster's a little bit more difficult because he doesn't have a bunch of miniseries. He's more appeared as, a pop-up villain.
He like swans in and out of stories.
Exactly. But he had a miniseries in 2010 by a guy named Van Lente, I don't know. But you can't really miss it. And it was called Unthinkable. It's pretty good. It goes into his memory loss and stuff like that. I think you'll like it.
Let's just go with Van Lente. It's much more fancy. And that is it, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at the Fantom Zone Pod for more podcast updates. Was just everyone being sad and resigned and crying.
I mean, everybody died.
I know, but I was just like, oh my god. It doesn't even look like a superhero movie